Welcome to the Minotaur's Maze, where today I'm joined by Edward Latimore. Ed grew up in the hood and fought his way out of poverty by becoming a professional heavyweight boxer. Following his boxing career, he became a successful author with a popular blog, an email newsletter, and best-selling books. He has a degree in physics, loves chess, and is an army vet, and his wizardry with words on Twitter has made him into one of the most widely respected influencers in the space, having amassed a massive following of over 131,000 people. Ed, thank you for being here and welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to sit down and have a conversation with someone who cares to hear what I have to say, man.
Brilliant. Well, it's quite a story. I mean, there's obviously a lot to unpack there. So, the journey from hood to army vet to boxing to writing to becoming an influencer, that's a massive story. So talk to us about the beginning. So talk to us about your life, early life in the hood. Obviously, we've all got preconceived notions, especially living here in the UK, about what the hood is like in America. But what was it actually like living in the hood in your childhood?
Oh no, I mean it's one of those things you get used to it and you learn to deal with, I guess, the lack. It's a constant lack, and you develop your own coping mechanisms. Like I developed mine for figuring out kind of how to get what I want, and or more importantly how to just get through each day. And then when I realized, it really helped me understand that if you want to change your situation, you have to put some work in. And if you put some work in, things then tend to happen that are good for your situation, not bad for it. But like, I mean, I think in terms of the daily life, it's probably it's pretty close to what I think a lot of people imagine it to be, which is, there's a strong criminal element that is ever present. There is a, what's the word I say? Kind of, it's not crab in the bucket mentality, because that implies people are actually trying to get out. It's almost this pride in ignorance. It's really making your flaws kind of virtues, and that sometimes works, but it doesn't work if you're not trying to make a difference and move on. And what I realized early on is that a lot of progress that I would have to make in life was going to come at the expense of a sense of comfort. And not that I ever really had one, but I think a sense of comfort and stability. Those are interesting ideas, certainly, that people aim to acquire, but they don't really mean much to me. I mean, they're just not worth that much in the grand scheme of things. So that's very much kind of how that went down.
Okay, so well, what was the first step out of the hood? So what was the first thing that obviously you wanted to make a change? So what did you do to make that change?
I think one of the first things that I did was I realized that, or at least when I was younger, I always thought education was a way out. So I tried to do really well in school. I understood very well the idea of not making mistakes. Like, you don't have to be brilliant, but if you don't make a mistake, you tend to keep yourself in position to do well. So I try to avoid making big mistakes, or things that get you in trouble with the law or illegitimate children. Those are the big ideas, because even if I don't know exactly where I want to go, I know how to avoid going to certain places. I may not know the destination I'm trying to get to, but I certainly know where I'm trying to not go, and that makes a big difference.
Okay, so then did you obviously I know you got the physics degree, but I think that came later on in
Oh,
life.
way later in life. I didn't even graduate.
Yeah. So in terms of the education, what did you do, and then where did you progress from there?
Um, Well, I didn't go back to school until I was 28, and left out when I was 18. So there's this 10-year period of making yourself the best version of yourself you can be, or at least trying to. Everyone's kind of wayward at that point in time, and there's a lot of um, what's the best word I want for it? I'm dealing with a lot of issues myself, and I'm trying to figure those out. And I'm not quite sure because there was no guidance coming up, so there was nothing to teach me and give me a foundation to work with. So I'm really figuring out this thing as an adult, kind of like bumping into the wall, and it's like. Okay, well, the way I describe it is, you're like walking through a maze in the dark, and each time you bump into a wall, you kind of figure it out, but you gotta be keen because you can't look behind you; it's still in the dark, and that's how you got to move to the maze, and that's what it really felt like from 18 to 20. I mean, I struggled with the alcohol stuff. I did figure out some things like how to develop discipline, and I changed my mindset from fixed to growth. I mean, there are a lot of things, and that happened because of my boxing training, but at the end of it all, that period is really formative. I mean, there's so much in between, and so much stuff to pull out from there. That takes me in different places in different ways, and is really responsible for where I'm at today.
Brilliant. So when did the boxing career start? When did training for boxing start, and how did that come about?
I started fighting when I was 22, and I needed to do something, right? So I didn't feel like I was doing much with my life at all. So I said, okay, let me find a way to put some sweat equity in, okay, in the world, and then that's important because you want proof that you've existed. And when you try to find that proof, you realize that the only way to do that is to start working hard at something like you want 4 years to pass, whether it be in college or in a sport or in a training environment, where people go, okay, you've been using the time to do something, and that's how boxing started. I mean, I just needed a way. I wanted to show something for myself. I felt like I didn't have anything to show for the 18 to 22 years that I had been alive, so I started. At that point, that was a 4-year period to pass. And then at 18, I tried college and failed out. I wasn't ready, but the 18 to 22 point is where it goes, and where I go. Okay, not doing anything. Let me go and study. Let me go figure this out. And by study, I mean study myself. And I realized, okay, I really want to fight. Well, it wasn't even that I really wanted to fight, so to speak. It was I needed to do something, and fighting just made the most sense. And turns out, putting yourself through a difficult thing like that is really good for you.
Okay. So I mean, talk to us a little bit about, obviously you're huge on mindset now, but what was your mindset like before the boxing career, like in terms of self-esteem, and your identity? What was your judgment of yourself? Like, what were some of the thoughts going through your mind?
Well, I mean, I never had an issue with self-esteem, thank goodness. I just my bigger issue was believing that I could learn a thing. It's weird. A lot of gifted children have this issue. It's and I say that because they identified me as like being an intelligent kid. Gifted is what they called it. Now that I'm older, I realize that label does way more harm than good.
Yes.
So, but what they identify is that a lot of kids like this, they don't understand that when you encounter problems, the response is to try and learn and work through it, and you gain way more from learning and working through a problem than you actually do solving it. They did a great study on this, that they took kids and they labeled them based on a series of interviews or whatever, fixed or growth mindset. The difference being fixed is that you think whatever you have is what you have, whether it be intelligence, athleticism, etc. And growth is that you'll grow. Okay. that you'll respond to a challenge and become better. And what we found, or what they found, is that, so they did that first, and then they gave each group the same math problem that had no solution. Like it was a pointless problem. They couldn't solve it. The kids who identified as fixed gave up, and the kids who identified as growth, they did not give up, and that's a really important trait that people have, and that's something that really developed in me in boxing, is that I was like, okay, let me get better, because I kept getting better, and then I took it and said, all right, let's if I can do that here, where else can I do that? And it really, that's where a lot of big changes came from in my life. That change in thinking.
Okay, so how long did the boxing career last, and can you maybe talk us about some of the highs as well as some of the lows in both results and in mindset?
I fought for what, 12 years, I think, 12 years
Okay.
maybe. Seems about right. And the highs and lows, I mean, there's never, you don't really pay attention. There's no concept of a high or low in mindset, I guess. You don't really pay attention to that. Instead, what you learn is that you just keep at it. It's persistency. That's all it is, and persistency doesn't care about how you feel in the moment or how you feel during the day. It's just the thing. It's not a push. There's no up, there's no down, there's just consistency. And I guess that's where it comes from in boxing. Or rather, not where it comes from in boxing. That is what came from boxing, and then what I can apply to everything that I do.
Okay, and then after the boxing career, what happened next in your life?
Life's been pretty good. I've been working on my writing and growing my website and having a good time. I had been doing that while I was fighting anyway,
Okay.
because the worst time to start something is right when it's time to do it. Like, no, I'd been doing this for a long time, and it grew and it developed and it grew and it developed, and so it was very easy. But or rather, I wouldn't say it was easy. I mean, because easy implies that I jumped right in and had to go. But no, but well, but by the time I stopped fighting, I had been writing on my website, on my newsletter, for my last 2000 for 7 years.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's not, this has always been a thing in the backdrop. I'm fortunate enough that I was able to realize that I was able to make a career out of what I'm doing. A lot of people don't have that option.
Okay, and what made you write? I mean, did you have like a goal to create this massive blog and following, or was it just that I'm just going to start writing and see where it goes? Like what was the ignition?
No, I wanted to write. I've always wanted to write, and there was no, and it just so happens. No, not just so happens. I suppose there's some intentionality behind trying to grow the following, but it's what's the best way to put this? I understand that to succeed, you have to build a following with your writing. With that said, I also realize that the best way for me to enjoy this is to write what I want to write, to put out what I want to put out, and to put out what I know best. To do anything else would be, I mean, at best disingenuous, and at worst, it's just downright counterproductive. So that's always kind of been my goal. I wanted to teach and write and do that kind of thing. So it was like, okay, let's do it. And we live in the age with the internet where you can build, if you're patient and you put the work in, you can build something really worthwhile and have a really good time while you do it. You know.
Excellent. You know, before we obviously move into Twitter, but where does the physics degree come into this? So at what point was that? Why did you go into physics? And what were some of the lessons you learned by doing the physics degree later on in life?
You gotta. Well, I did it because when I started, I needed to go back to school, or at least I thought so. I didn't quite know what I was gonna study. But I guess after some research, I figured that it had to be math, and if it wasn't gonna be math, there was 0 point in going. So once I figured that out, um, I went for math, and then I enlisted in the army. And in the army, my MOS was something called land combat electrician, or line combat and electrical systems repairer. And there I got exposed to a lot of principles about of electrical engineering and electricity in general. And I said, okay, I want to study electrical engineering. And then while I was doing that, took my physics class, and it turns out that I really like physics. Um, and so I said, all right, let's do physics instead, and that was where that kind of came from.
Okay. Okay. So was that before the writing career or during the writing career and the boxing
Oh,
career?
all this happens at the same time. There's no separation here. This has been a
Okay.
very busy life.
Yeah, so talk to us about it because obviously, you know, we live in an age where, you know, people are busy, but they're busy doing nothing. But you're doing like 3 or 4 different things which require a lot of energy. So how did you manage to fit all of that in at one go?
I had a lot of help, man. I had a good girlfriend. I wasn't drinking either. That really helps, because that wastes a lot of time. I stayed really. I had purposes and focuses. I didn't. It's amazing how much time you can find when you're not wasting it. So that is one of the things that I think really helped. That made a difference is that I wasn't about just being a fool. I was trying to actually be productive in my life.
Okay, so you know you've started this writing career. So did the blog come first, or did Twitter come first, or did they come at the same time? So
I I started Twitter. Um, well, I mean, you can look at it and see when I first made the account, but I don't like remember um having Twitter, and I'd always had a blog in some form or fashion. But the blog as we know it today, I think it's safe to say that didn't exist until about 12. I think at 1,200 followers. I said at 1,200 followers, I'm gonna make a blog, and I had it launched. I just remember that specific time frame, so it's real easy for me to remember when I said I was gonna do it, because that's the date I chose.
okay, and so you know, talk to us about the blog then and the Twitter. So it's been obviously a long journey, but how difficult has it been to build a following, and how long has it taken
Oh
before you
yeah.
would say it was successful?
The success or not, I mean, I always wanted to do it, so I don't even think of it in terms of how long did it take to do X, Y, or Z. Yeah,
Mhm.
because it was something I was going to do anyway, or
Okay.
had been
Mhm.
doing. Um, and the following numbers grow because I try to consistently put out good stuff, and that's pretty much it. Like there was not nearly as much intention as I think God's, at least for me, there was not nearly as much intention as it is for other people. I mean, I just wanted to put together. I was like, okay, I understand this content and it's great. Let's have a good time with it, and do something really awesome. And if people resonate, great. If not, but I figured they would resonate, like, because I fundamentally believe I'm the most interesting person that most people are ever going to meet. And I think carrying that attitude certainly helps and makes it more likely that I'm going to succeed in something like this.
Okay, and you know, well, for obviously, you know, a lot of the listeners are that might not know. So you know, you've got 131,000 followers on Twitter now. That's a huge number. But what impact has popularity on Twitter and your blog done for you and for your life?
It makes me a lot of money. That's pretty much that's cool. Connects me with some people. I mean, having people forget that social media is just a tool. That's it. And I've been really smart about how I go about using that tool. And that tool continues to pay and connect me. So those are the two big changes. And then there's also a third change that I think a lot of people don't think about is that it creates this kind of standard for behavior. Because I didn't build it being an asshole, I don't. I'm not really compelled to act like one. Plus, I try to set an example and live by anything I put out there, which is why I put it out there in the first place. I mean, it's not just nonsense. And so in doing so, I get to create. I get to make myself a better person, man. I really believe that.
Okay, so obviously Twitter is the dominant platform that you're on, but most people wouldn't consider Twitter as a platform to build a business or to make money. But so just explain quickly how you can actually use Twitter to make money and why it's so powerful compared to the other more traditional, the other social media platforms.
Um, I don't. You know what's funny? I don't know how people don't how they make money on other platforms. Like I can't figure out how a person does this on IG or Facebook. I mean, maybe paying for ads. It's simple. You create a thing, you put it out there, and if you understand the marketing ideas and how to get people to engage in your writing, and you've done a good job building yourself up authentically and correctly. It's just it's a breeze. It's not even work, you know.
Okay, so it's obviously it's literally obviously picking a theme, setting your profile up, and then just putting out content on a daily basis, making it engaging. But then obviously you need to have some kind of product to sell. So talk
Oh
to us
yeah,
about.
yeah. You create something based on everything on things that you know or things that you can do. So like you can't just create a product and or rather if you don't know anything, you weren't gonna be anything anyway. All the internet has done is allow people to reach out and distribute their knowledge to a wide base of people quickly. So and then with I mean with huge reach, like it's really crazy.
Yeah, and talk to us about some of obviously you make a lot of money, but talk to us about some of the connections you've made because of Twitter, which you
Oh,
probably wouldn't have made.
tons. I never name drop that. I don't think that's cool at all. But
Oh
people
no,
think
no, I mean
like,
in terms of like how has it
oh,
impacted your life, and like what have you been able to do because of it, or what experience has.
um, I'm not quite sure. I mean, I've been on some interesting shows and got a lot of interesting people in my phone, but I'm really focused on making sure that I'm the person that they say is cool to meet, not me saying I it was cool I got to meet that guy. So in other words, like I'm really focused on becoming and building myself, and then from there, people cool people just keep finding me. I mean that is the best part about all this is how that ends up working out.
Yeah. Okay. So, like, I've taken your Twitter course. I mean, I've probably bought engagement is the new cocaine a few times because of the different bundles. Now, open disclosure, like, I haven't spent a lot of time on Twitter, but when I have, it obviously does work. Like your the things that you teach, they do work. I've experienced it. But I'm going to talk about something which I know a lot of people struggle with this, and it's the fear of what people think. And I know you've got a book called Not Caring is a Superpower. Where did your not caring about what people think attitude come from, and is it something that comes naturally, or can you develop it?
I think we all have a different leaning towards it. I probably lean a little more naturally towards um like low neuroticism, low I don't sense of self, fairly strong identity and everything, like not easily swayed by the public and things like that. And I think what ends up so that makes it easy for me to live it in terms of to talk and teach about it. Usually the difficulty is if a person has there's a natural lean towards something, then they um they have a difficulty teaching others how to do it because I mean they don't know what it's like to not know it. But I'm fortunate that I experienced some things that really helped me have to get back to that centerpiece. And so I'm able to write about that and put those essays in the cool words and everything and figure it out. So I
Oh,
think that a person can learn how to do it, I guess, in other words, what I'm saying. I definitely believe that.
yeah, so this is specifically about, people who care about what people think and they're scared to put things out. What can they specifically do to get rid of that fear and just become free in putting out content?
They gotta know, remember that no one's gonna care anyway. Usually, I mean, the reality is most people who are worried about this, they're not gonna be good enough to attract attention. And that's really freeing idea. Like most people, like even now, most people have no idea who I am, and I have a bigger following than most people, and I'm good at this. Most people are not going to be even close to as good or have anything close to the ability to reach. And so if they remember that, just put it out there. Realistically, like the odds are you're going to fail, and that is really comforting. Like in other words, like what's supposed to happen is you mess up, and no one's supposed to look at you or care about you, and that's really uh what really happens, man. It's kind of it's funny when I think about it. I'm like, people are scared to put stuff out there. I'm like, you realize no one is going to care, and you're like realistically outside of the people you share it with, you're not going to attract readers. Like it takes a lot, and when I'm not saying that to dissuade, I'm saying that to put the numbers in perspective. Like it's hard to generate links, and if your life is not remotely noteworthy, which is most people who think they want to do it, no one's gonna like no one cares. So go do it anyway. Have a ball.
Excellent. And, there's always this debate on all the platforms and especially on Twitter, should you have a personal brand or an anonymous or company brand? And, I'll just talk a little bit about my experience on Twitter. Like, obviously, I've got multiple Twitter accounts for various reasons, for various companies or whatnot. But the first one, I mean, like my background, like I had really bad social anxiety, self-esteem issues. And in the youngest days, I really was one of those conspiracy theorist and paranoid about everything. So everything I did online was anonymous. Um, but as obviously the social media platforms have developed, and you kind of realize the importance of a personal brand. But then there's still that, the whole point of a company brand is to build it and then to sell it. And also it gives you some, well, it did for me because of this low self-esteem. The anonymous brands did give me freedom. Like for example, like one of the anonymous brands that I did open up followed your principles, followed your guidelines, and I just typed. Like for 2 weeks, I was on Twitter from literally all day, and within that 2 week period, I got something like 250 followers, which for me is massive because the normal account, the personal brand account, has only got 300 odd followers, and that's taken years to get there. So 250 followers in 2 weeks was massive. But because of that flow state I was in, Gary V tweeted something, I responded, he responded to that, and I got onto his show. And obviously the anonymous brand had to stop there because the personal brand had to come forward to be on Gary Vee's show. So in your opinion, is it better to have a personal brand, a company brand, or does it not matter?
Depends on what you want to do. That's the honest to goodness truth. It just depends on what you want to do. Not everyone's on Twitter to do anything remotely like me. I mean, I'm not trying to do remotely like anyone else. It makes sense for me because my background, who I am. I mean, I couldn't be private if I wanted to because of my fight career, and so it just made sense to lean into it. Maybe that's not your thing. Maybe you're trying to build an actual brand to commercialize and a product to develop. If that's what you're trying to do, it makes no sense for you to have a personal, or to not have a personal, I guess, or to have a personal. You just got to figure out what your goals are. Once you know that, the answer usually becomes pretty clear. But the long end of it is that one size does not fit all, not even close. You gotta know what you're trying to do.
Okay. And what are some of the benefits of the personal brand that you've witnessed, and what are some of the drawbacks of having a personal brand?
Um, if you're not an asshole or a scumbag, there's no drawback. I mean,
Does it
I,
not affect, like, obviously you've got 131,000 followers, like people will be hitting you up all day, every day, your notifications must be all over the place. Does it not ever get to a stage where you think like I can't be, this is too much?
well,
Or
if it ever gets to that stage, I just don't respond to people. Like it's like you always have that power. Like you're not thrust and you have to stand there. You can shut it off and not respond and go do like otherwise like I have to do work. Otherwise, they wouldn't care who I am. So that's really it's an important boundary to remember is that you can always shut it off. And so I don't I'm sure that there is something I'm missing out on. I've yet to find it. So but because for example, when Twitter goes, and Twitter will go. I mean, well, how it goes is going to be a different conversation. But when Twitter goes, whatever, or whenever the next platform comes up, I'm at Latimore. That's who I am. So I'm going to go to another one and be like, hey, at Latimore, and people will be able to like find me. Like because I own me. You look everything up, it's me. And the reality is, I think a lot of times I think the closest thing to what I've done is I've become more of a celebrity than a brand. I mean, I built myself. Like you can type my name into Google and there's a ton of stuff because I built this life and did these things, and people take interest. And as I understand and learn how to play the game even more, it's not even a question. I couldn't imagine not like as interesting as I am and the life I've lived. I couldn't imagine being behind something else. Like no avatar could come as close to being as cool as I am. It just ain't gonna happen. So I wouldn't do that. Uh, so,
yeah, okay. And obviously, I saw some pictures recently. You're sparring with Roy Jones Jr. Now, did that come about because of your boxing career or because of this celebrity status from Twitter?
oh, boxing career. They don't care about fighters don't care about how famous you are. Yeah, can you fight? That's all that matters. My coach is his coach. That's all that happened, and so it ended up working out really well. Um, and then I keep myself in great shape. I'm not the guy that said, "Oh, I'm done fighting. All right, peace." Like no. I keep in very good shape because it's an important thing to do. It's always been important to me.
Excellent. And obviously in America, I mean, from this side, looking in at the your clips on social media and on the mainstream media, there just seems to be like so much civil unrest and a lot of racism and a lot of police brutality against black people. But what is the reality? Is the situation as bad as we're led to believe, or is the reality actually different?
I mean, oh, that's a good question. I can only speak from my experience. I think the reality is different. But the problem is that some people here think the reality is that. So, um, the truth is, I've been pulled over so many times, and in many of those instances, I was in the wrong, and because I know how to talk to people and be cool, not be an asshole, and I'm not, I don't go to jail, let alone get beat on. Does that mean that doesn't happen? No. Does it mean that it's a race problem? Or does it mean that it's not a racial issue? I'm inclined to believe that all things considered now that there are a few. I'm never going to be the guy that says there aren't racists. What I will say is that the incentive for not being the incentives are there now. Between social media and how they can and body cams. They're not just killing folk. I mean, I've seen some videos where I'm just like, this is wild. Um, but they don't highlight the situations where it happens to other races, or they don't highlight the when there is something and good to happen. or when there is a conviction or anything even remotely like that. I mean, they don't pay attention to these things.
Okay, and I mean across the board, I mean not just obviously towards black people, but there seems to be an almost victim mentality in every culture, race, religion, and there seems to be a lot of mindset and self-esteem issues. In your opinion, what do you think is the reason or the root cause for such a massive problem with self-esteem and mindset and victim mentality in today's society?
Because life is easy. It's too easy, so people think that when something's not easy, they don't um they don't do anything. They're not used to the kickback. They're not used to the pushback, so they feel like so really in a lot of ways the victim mentality is this is really this cry for it to be easier, right? uh because hardship is hard. I mean, by definition. you know and a lot of times, they're not gonna get that. So it's not, I never really think about it because it's not because at this point it's not a thing that concerns my mentality, because I've accepted a long time ago that you just can't change, can't mold. People gonna be people. It is what it is, unfortunately, for better or worse. But what I can do is just make sure that I don't fall victim to a lot of it. So that's what I try to do. I try to
Okay, but you get obviously, you've got a following and people look up to you and they ask you for advice. And if somebody um, with sincerity comes to you and they're struggling with self-esteem and mindset, like what kind of advice would you be giving them to help them overcome it and get better?
two things, man. You gotta like no like people don't care. Like it is the most selfish thing in the world for somebody, especially a nobody, like complete nobody, to have self-esteem issues, because the whole issue is that you think you're being judged. Like no, man, like you're one of 7 billion. Do you understand, if you put that number into a calculator, one divided by 7 billion, you get a number so small that only the most advanced calculators are going to return anything but zero. Like you don't matter. You probably aren't ever going to matter. And once you embrace that, you can go, oh, okay, let me stop worrying about people who don't and even let's pretend you do matter. You're going to die anyway. And in 2 generations, there's not going to be no one around that ever even talked to you directly. So unless you like make it into the history books, for better or worse, you're going to be completely forgotten. So no one cares now. No one is ever going to care. Most people are never going to know about you. So now we know. All right. So you get a lot of this comes from this mentality that people really care. No, like no one cares. You're not special. I'm not special. No one cares. That's the first thing I say. The second thing is go do something. When you do things, you tend to become like you tend to turn down the noise in the background about life and stop worrying. Like for example, when you're training to fight, and you get in the ring, you realize a lot of shit doesn't matter. Like a lot of it. All that matters, really teach you to put your head in the moment and focus on yourself, because anything else is gonna get you hurt pretty fast and possibly permanently. So you learn to put your mind into your task. Fighting is just the example I know, but it could be anything that forces you to use your physical body, because you can't see, because unlike sitting on the internet, I can put my mind in different places. It's very hard to do that when you're training weights, when you're running, if you're learning to play a sport at a competitive level. That's what a really big issue is. A lot of people, man, they do not uh push, grow, and develop their bodies to the point where they can really be effective forces and challenge themselves. It doesn't happen.
Okay, so just to recap then, firstly, stop caring because nobody cares, and secondly, do something physically challenging. Because I saw your tweet earlier on as well, and you always recommend the first change you need to make is a physical change.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
So why is that? Why is the physical change important to be made first rather than anything else?
Because you can see a physical change. You can't see anything. Maybe you figure out how to make money or something, or your personality changes. But those are things. A lot of those are dependent on outside forces, right? People recognizing there's an element of probability. You might realize and changing your personality first that you look like shit, but you didn't realize that. So people still ain't trying to talk to you. But when you improve the first impression layer, or our site is the first impression layer, when you improve how you the impression you make on that, one, you see what happens. You like a real reaction, and then the world reacts well. And now and then more importantly, you know that it's possible to change something and do something. So I don't like anybody who needs. That's another thing. If you have a self-esteem issue, come talk to me after you put the time into getting your body fat below 15%, getting your BMI over 25 at the same time, and learn how to groom, and spending at least let's say $500 at the broke low end on your wardrobe. Let's see where you are after that.
Excellent. And obviously there's a lot of fear out there at the moment. It might not be obviously related to physicality, but mainly because of coronavirus and COVID, and everyone's losing their minds, losing their jobs. Like what advice do you have for people that are struggling right now, and they've got doubts and they've got fears? Like what could you say to help them to move forward?
You go do something. You got to do something, because there's nothing. No one's fear ever got alleviated by sitting still, and going, okay, I'm gonna figure this out. Like, no, no, no. You have to make the fear. You have to figure out, okay, what is it that I'm afraid of? I'm afraid of losing my job. Let me go get another one. Let me figure out how to make some money. That's pretty much how that goes. And if you're not ready for that, then you got a rough road ahead, because the world is not going to stop for you. It does not care about you and what you want to do. That's just a fact. And people worry too much about things like that when doesn't matter. Let's pretend the virus is like, oh wow, let's pretend the virus is like, I'm gonna take some people out, and everyone who's left won't have jobs. The economy's going to be crushed, and then we know that. Well, why it's happening? What are you doing to make sure that you're not vulnerable to that? What are you doing to make sure the future can be better? Those are the things that you have to do if you're afraid, and that's for everything. Whenever you're afraid, take action. That's your only choice. It's the only choice that makes sense. When you're afraid, take action.
So, I mean, following on from that, so have there been periods in your life where you've been afraid, and what was the fear, and what action did you take to get over that fear and progress forward?
Took action. Always, it's the same thing. Take action.
Like, do
Take
you have a
action.
specific example? Like, when was the time when you were really afraid? Why were you afraid? What did you do, and what was the outcome?
I used to be afraid of dogs, so I got used to being around dogs, and that was because when I was a kid, we were attacked by some Dobermans. So when I was a little kid, but eventually I just kept putting myself around dogs, and I learned to deal with it. I used to be afraid of lightning. That went away when I joined the army, and I was forced to like march outside, and then so you get desensitized. You keep taking action. I was afraid of going back to where I was, so I'm always working towards improving my life and making sure I have money and skills and ability. You got to raise the bar also for what you're afraid of, and then push. That now it's not enough for me to be afraid of being poor. Like I will never be in the project again, like ever. I'm almost halfway done with my life. I got too many skills and too much knowledge. So how do I keep making progress? I'm afraid of ever having a job again. Okay, so and then keep using that. You got to be afraid of something, and then it's not just enough to be afraid. You got to take action. And that puts you in a position where you're not afraid of that thing. and keep moving and working towards it. Action is the remedy for everything.
I mean, so that's really interesting because I mean, you know, you're talking about yet you're afraid of going back there, and that's almost like you're motivated to keep striving forward. Whereas we're living in a time where people are like saying, you know, ignore your fears, only focus on gratitude, only focus on the good things. But the fear, that's actually a very powerful motivator.
Yeah, it's both. You gotta have a thing you're striving towards and something you're running away from. They're not competing ideas. People get caught up in thinking that you can only have only have one idea and one solution to a to an open-ended problem, and that's just not the case. You know, it's two ideas at once. I am not going back and I'm going to be better. I am content with what I have, but I'm ambitious for more. I have a chip on my shoulder, but I'm also better than everyone else. And they've actually proven it though that attitude, that last one, is something that all successful people have in common: the ability to hold these dual ideas in their mind and live them both, because it's that's the only way. You know, there's no extreme that gets you where you're gonna go. It's just not possible.
Excellent. And so, where is Ed Latimore going from? You know, like, what is your mission? What is your why? Where are you going in the future?
I'm gonna keep writing and developing and growing, you know, and wherever that takes me is where it takes me. Like the meta idea is to always push myself and develop myself and leave the world a better place than how I found it. That kind of ensures I don't stay selfish, and by doing that, you know, like some of my ideas, you know, I might go back to school and get a master's in something related to atmospheric science or the environment. I'm also might fight again. I'm working on some books and just continue to interact and grow. I'm really fortunate, man, that my life is such that I can live this way. 'Cause not everyone has this experience. Now and when I say fortunate, you know, what I mean is that I was able to go through these things, grab lessons, and still be able to deliver and talk to folks. That's really
Yeah,
what
you
matters.
worked hard. It's not fortunate. It's not just been given to you. You know, you've worked hard. Like, you
No,
know, we discussed.
right, but I could have been born, you know, in 1908, man, and there's no internet, so who knows what I'm doing. I could have been born in 2010, or rather, that's too early, 2020, and so I spent all mine, so I'm too young and I'm not working on it, and then this happens. You know, I feel bad for a lot of people who are just coming out of college when Corona happened, because then the jobs drop. Um, I could have not had the courage to go. Like I could have lost a fight or something that would have messed up the trajectory of my life. I mean, there are lots of little things that are not entirely in my control that I benefited from, and I never forget that.
Excellent. And you know, so just talk to us about some of the products that you've got, some of the coaching programs you got. You know, what are you currently doing to help other people?
You know, I run a group about with some guys who are trying to um, get their pornography control under use. I'm writing some guys that help people grow on Twitter. I have my books about sobriety and my original not caring what other people think is a superpower, where I have a series of essays about improving your life and your self control, and just the areas where I grew when I was my life was a bit of a mess. So yeah, you know, the cool thing is that I'm at Latimore everywhere on the internet. You can just type it in, and something will come out, whether it's a website, a wiki page, my social media, something will pop up.
Yeah, and you know, just to add to that, like I said, I have taken Ed's Twitter courses. Like, you know, they are, there's no fluff in them, straight to the point. A lot of education in there, a lot of great points. And you know, I mean, I can't say like I've built a massive following, but that's my fault because I haven't spent a lot of time on Twitter. But the times I have spent on Twitter and implemented those principles, they do work. And you know, like I mentioned before, it was because of those teachings, because of what I did on Twitter, which got me in onto Gary Vee's radar, which is basically the catalyst for this podcast and all the people I'm speaking to now. So, you know, taking online courses can be powerful if you put in the work, and I 100% endorse Ed's courses. And you know, we will be putting links below. They're not affiliate links, so I'm not making anything from it. It's just a genuine endorsement. The links will be below. check out the courses, check out the website. And, let's just talk about, some of the articles that you've got. What are your most popular articles, and why do you think they were so popular?
Oh man, they because they resonated with people at some level. I mean, the internet is people looking for answers, right? And so the most popular things are things that people are looking for answers to. Aside from entertainment, I don't really write entertainment. I write answers. So the articles that are the most popular are the ones that answer the question, and it varies. Sometimes people are worried about sobriety. Sometimes people are trying to get out of porn. I mean, these are the things I just write about all my experiences, and the algorithm sometimes boosts something to the top, takes them to the bottom. It's all really interesting, kind of how it works. But I don't pretend to know why my articles are popular, because if I knew that, I'd only write popular articles. I write just what I know, and some things pop, some things don't. I'm always surprised it's not always, but sometimes I'm surprised when something gets crazy. Like my attractive male article, very surprised about that. Relationship rules for men, that's a pretty popular one on my site. Surprised about that one. Very surprised about my porn article. So about quitting porn, but a lot of it is also how I work the SEO and what I've learned about doing that. So I wish I had an answer to that question, but I don't know. And if you figure it out, feel free to write me, because I could use that information.
So, I mean, from what I've taken from that is, for people listening is, don't worry too much about making the perfect article. Just write your content in your voice. You don't know what's going to kick off. It's just a matter of putting it out there and letting the market and letting people decide whether it works or not.
Exactly. Then no one knows. I mean, it's just not. If they knew, guys would be. I mean, if somebody knew, they'd be trying to sell it for sure. It's just that there's so many things to go into. Just write what's true to you.
Okay, and so what would you say is the number one skill that you need to develop? Is it mindset, or is it writing to develop a personal brand using Twitter and a blog? Like, what should a person who's got no experience, no confidence, they just know that they've got a skill in writing, like what should they be focusing on?
You ain't got a skill in writing if you haven't done anything. It's just not. If there's one thing I've come to, I used to kind of hate it, but now I get it. They used to say, don't write anything before you're 30. I don't quite believe that. What I do believe is that anyone can string together words, whatever, and because words are there. But do you have experience in life? Go do something. Like that. That is the single biggest thing that will hold people back from doing anything with the writing they want to do, is they think they can just write, just like they can think they can just get on the internet and type on Twitter and be good. No, go live a life. You got to live a life, get some experiences, fail, learn how to deal with failure. Writing, people think writing is a thing that just you're gonna be just guaranteed some success if you got some skills stringing together words. Anyone can string together words. What people care about is the person stringing those words together. It was the notable exception being fiction, but even that, you got to create a world, and the platform still helps. It's like public speaking. You could be the greatest speaker in the world, but if no one knows who you are, who gives a shit? On the other end, I've seen some terrible speakers, but because they have a name, they command the money, they command the audience. You got to go live life. There is no shortcut. That's what the internet has done. The internet's created the illusion that there's a shortcut to
Yes.
having a fulfilling life.
Excellent. That's powerful. That's very powerful. We're going to wrap things up. So once again, just tell people, where can they find more about you? Where can they find your content, and which is the best platform to actually engage with you?
The best platform to engage with me, ooh, that means I check them all. My phone is never dead, so I'm all good on anywhere. So wherever you want to send me a message, it's all good. But Just type Ed Latimore, man. Ed Latimore on Twitter, Ed Latimore Instagram, Ed Latimore Facebook. My website is edlatimore.com. So I'm Ed Latimore everywhere. My YouTube, if I get back to making my videos, Ed Latimore. So it all works out. Ed Latimore is how you find me.
Brilliant. And so who's your ideal client? Like, who should really be looking you up, and who can you help with?
Oh man. I wish I had an answer for that. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think about these things. I'm very centered on what I want to create. Whoever finds it is whoever finds it. And I think a lot of people can get a lot out of me. Some more than others. Uh, but as weird as this sounds, I don't create for them. I am just fortunate enough that what I create, people get a lot out of.
Oh,
But
okay.
doing it for the audience, I don't think that can ever be a good motivation because the audience taste can change. It can go completely. If I was doing this for the audience, I'd be writing a bunch of shit about politics, for example, right? Not interested, not interested whatsoever. So instead, I focus on me. So I have no idea who the ideal client is. I guess if you're trying to improve your mind, if you're trying to learn, if you're trying to become stronger or better, I got different articles and different things. You're trying to practice forgiveness and learn that. That helps too. So, uh, all kinds of people who need to learn all kinds of things.
Brilliant. And that's, I mean, I don't want to label this one, but that's so interesting because everyone else is teaching that you got to niche down, you got to know exactly who your ideal
No, I
client
am I am anti niche. I tell people that all the time. I mean, fucking niche, man, because you're the product, not and you're a person, and persons have personalities that don't fit in the neat little boxes, man. And I think that's one of the reasons I have such a big following is because so many people can relate. If I was just talking about one thing or the other, okay, I'd be stuck at who knows what I'd be stuck at. But I'm me. I am the brand. I am the person. I'm. That's why I say what I've done is closer to becoming a celebrity than building a brand. I mean, I think building a brand is something you do when you ain't got shit, man. But when you've done something and you have something to say and something to show and produce, yeah, then people are like, okay, cool.
Excellent. Like, so, the key takeaway there for me is, look, you don't need to worry about who your ideal client is. You don't need to be worried about your niche. You just need to be worried about living your life, becoming the best you can, and then just sharing your lessons with other people. And those that will resonate will come, and the rest don't really matter.
Excellent. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Brilliant. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Once again, thank you for being here. And any last words for everybody out there before we wrap up?
Just be yourself. Be your best self. There you go. Not just be yourself. And that means always push whatever your strengths are, develop them, eliminate your weaknesses over time, and try to make the world a better place than you found it.
Excellent. Brilliant. Well, it's been, again, great talking to you. And once again, thank you for being here.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
Brilliant. And everybody else, we will see you on the next episode. Take care and bye-bye.